Hello, I'm Kirk Harnack with the Telos Alliance. Welcome to my studio and lab. Today we're going to be talking about the new Fusion AoIP audio console from the Telos Alliance and from Axia. Let me suggest that you go ahead and get comfortable. It's going to take a little while to describe all the new features and benefits and how they're effective for you in the new Fusion AoIP audio console from Axia. The Fusion console is from the Axia division of the Telos Alliance. The Telos Alliance consists of 5 major name brands in the broadcast industry: Telos, Omnia, 24/7, Axia, and Linear Acoustic. We're really glad to introduce you to this Fusion console, though, and I hope you're going to enjoy the things that you see. What are we learning today? Well, I want you to listen up a little bit. We're going to discover the new features in the Fusion console and what they mean to you. We're going to talk a bit about that, and I'm sure we'll get confused, or at least I might from time to time. We'll talk our way out of it, though, and in the end, I think we'll all understand the features and benefits of the new Fusion audio console. My colleague at the Telos Alliance, Clark Novak, has already produced a series of videos about the Fusion console. Let's take a look at this one introducing you to the Fusion. Clark?
Hi, I'm Clark Novak from Axia Audio, and I'm here to introduce you to the new Fusion AoIP mixing console, the newest modular AoIP console from Axia, the company that invented AoIP for broadcast in 2003. Let's take a quick look at some of the unique features found only in Fusion. The first thing you'll notice is that Fusion is really beautiful. Fusion's clean, crisp new look isn't just for show, though. It's a result of years of conversations with engineers and talent about how they work inside the radio studio. Above the faders, you'll find keys for making fast bus assignments. Below the faders are individual phone and talkback switches that allow you to take control of conversations in the control room. More on those a bit later. Notice how brightly those keys light up? Fusion uses LED lighting everywhere to make it easy to see when controls are active. And the faders themselves are super premium 100mm conductive plastic. Axia sourced them specially because they're specifically built to keep out dirt, liquids, and airborne particulates that could ruin lesser faders. Fusion gives you tons of information, from confidence meters on every channel input to talkback tallies that confirm your off-air communications with talent inside or outside the plant, to the information-rich monitor panel that lets operators view up to 6 program meters at once, even while making adjustments to individual input settings. Fusion is easy to use. Press this options knob at the top of the fader strip to get instant access to adjustments for that channel, like pan and balance, EQ adjustments with a graphical curve display, Omnia voice processing settings, input gain trim, and much more. Fusion's full-featured monitor module gives instant control of headphones and monitors for control room guests or adjacent studio talent. There's also a keypad that allows direct dialing of Telos phone systems, one-touch access to Fusion's powerful Show Profiles feature, another one-touch key to activate the indispensable record mode, and 4 programmable user keys that can be used to trigger routing changes, send GPIO commands to recording or other devices, or interface with your profanity delay, a handy feature when trouble strikes and you don't have time to hunt for a dump button in a rack someplace. Fusion can be custom ordered in frame sizes that support from 8 to 40 faders in single or multiple linked frames. This universal 4-fader module is the building block of any Fusion console. Then there's this call controller module that puts full control of advanced Telos multi-line phone systems right on the console, enhancing operator workflow. These 10 and 20 station intercom modules integrate seamlessly with console mics and monitors. Simply push a button and converse with the remote station using the board mic and preview speaker or headphones. To control outboard devices, trigger scene changes or routing salvos, or execute complex events programmed using Axia Pathfinder routing control products, these 10 button modules are available in economical single-function film cap or dynamic context-sensitive smart switch versions. There's even a space-saving monitor module with 2 faders to help maximize fader count in tight situations. Of course, Fusion's power supply is telecom grade, sourced with components designed for maximum uptime and extended duty cycles in harsh environments. They're fanless, cooled by massive cast heat sinks for complete studio silence. Redundant power backup is an available option. Hookup? Couldn't be easier. One Ethernet cable connects Fusion to your studio network. That's it. We hope you've enjoyed this introduction to Axia Fusion. To find out more about the other powerful features in Fusion, please watch the other videos in this series. We'll see you next time.
One of the things you may have noticed about the Fusion console is it's simply stunning. It's a gorgeous piece of broadcast gear. A gorgeous design made with premium materials, and it's pleasing to the eye and the touch. All you have to do to prove that to yourself is try one out. Let's look again at some of the Fusion features that you'll want to take note of. Every channel fader has a high-res OLED display. There's a quick access options knob for every fader channel. Automatic mix-minus for every source, and that means custom feedbacks are possible, and so are dynamic split feeds. Those features are new for the Fusion. Super premium silky smooth side-loading faders. They resist spills, dust, and other contaminants. The Fusion work surface is machined aluminum plate. It's not sheet metal. Markings are all laser etched and double anodized. They will not rub off, ever. And that means the console will look as new 10 years from now as it does the day you install it. The Telos call controller module works with legacy phone systems like the NX12 and NX6, but also newer phone systems from Telos like the HX6, IQ6, and the VX phone systems. You know, the 4 fader modules, these are the workhorse of the console. You'll probably be specifying several of these for every console that you put in. They offer easy control of sources for perfect audio. IP Intercom is available, and that brings in broadcast quality audio. More on that later. The mechanical and electronic design of the Fusion has been proven reliable with the Element. Aircraft-grade switches with LED backlights last and last, and the whole console just feels great and is very strong. Essential controls are within easy reach, and they're not buried in a menu somewhere. Record mode, monitor select, and more are just one button touch away. Are you switching shows several times a day? Maybe changing the console to a production role? Well, you can choose a profile to set up the console exactly right, no matter what role that it needs to play. One-button record makes it super easy to record liners, phone calls, remote cut-ins, and things like that, quickly and accurately. Full-featured monitor module is easy to use, yet it satisfies even power users. You can link or unlink headphones from the speaker feed, one-button selection of preset feeds, and a lot more. Integrated dialing pad works with Telos phone systems and ISDN codecs to get your guests online fast. Now let's talk for a minute about quality. Skimp on materials? No, we put the best materials possible into the Fusion console. It's a new brushed metal design with an all-aluminum frame. By the way, this frame is super rigid. It's a fantastic design, literally years in the making, and it holds all the components rigidly and accurately. And even more robust components inside. The folks, the engineers at Telos and Axia, looked at the previous Element console to see what could they improve. And they found a couple of points to do that with and put those in the Fusion. The Fusion console features a fanless, telecom-grade power supply, whether you choose the power station or the new Fusion power supply to power the Fusion. Of course, like all Axia products, it has a 5-year warranty, and support is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. We never rest, and help is always available if you need it. More on how the Axia Fusion console is truly built to last. Here's my colleague again, Clark Novak.
After 10 years and more than 5,000 consoles, people constantly tell us how attractive Axia consoles are. But a console isn't designed for show, it's made to work in challenging conditions 24 hours a day, year after year. So here's a look at some of the special design choices Axia has made to ensure that Fusion meets that challenge. Some companies cover their console work surfaces with paint, which can rub off, or with plastic, which can tear or be ripped. Not Fusion. Its work surface is all metal, solid aluminum. Not only that, its double anodized markings are sealed in. They can't ever rub, peel, or flake off, which means that Fusion will still look as good in 5 years as it does the day you begin using it. At one time or another, we've all had the task of replacing light bulbs in console switches. Fusion does away with all that. All switches are lit with LEDs made to keep on shining for hundreds of thousands of hours. Oh, and those switches themselves are aircraft grade, specially sourced and tested by us to sustain millions of on-off operations without failure. So you won't ever have to worry about replacing those either. Fusion's frame is made from thick machined aluminum too. It's RF proof but also lightweight. No worries about whether your tabletops can hold up. Fusion's designed for drop-in installation and it's very low profile. No giant tub to intrude on under-counter space. Where other consoles use dot matrix readouts for channel displays, Fusion comes with easy-to-read, super high-resolution OLEDs above each fader. They show the assigned source, tallies when talkback or other special features are enabled, and full-time confidence meters to help prevent dead air. Talent doesn't have to wonder whether that caller is dropped or satellite feed's ready to join. They can see it clearly before they pull the fader up. No wipers to wear out on our rotary encoders. They're all optical. Some of the most important parts of any console are the faders. One of the reasons faders fail is from dirt, grime, and of course liquid that falls through the slots in the modules. Fusion's faders are special, premium, conductive plastic faders that actuate from the side, not the top. That way, dirt that falls through the surface slots falls past the faders, not into them. They stay smooth and silky nearly forever. That's a fast look at how Fusion consoles are designed to last and built to perform just as beautifully as they look. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, Clark. Let's take a look at the new Fusion power supply. It's new for the Fusion, but it's based on a design that's been proven now for about 5 years. It has this big, massive front panel heatsink. It's fanless, and it supplies all the power that a Fusion needs for either a 1 or a 2-frame Fusion console, even up to the biggest size possible, 40 faders. You can power a Fusion console with the Fusion power supply or with an Axia power station. Either way, the choice is yours. You can use 2 Fusion power supplies if you like for complete power supply redundancy. They're hot swappable this way. You can also power the Fusion with a power station from Axia. And if you want redundancy there, you can simply add a power station aux unit to give full redundancy to all the electronics in the power station and in the Fusion console. You still awake? Okay, let's continue on then. I want to toot our horn for just a minute about audio over IP, because this is important. At Axia, we don't just understand audio over IP, we actually created it for broadcast. Yes, that's right, Axia invented AoIP consoles. We shipped the first console in 2003. Other guys said it'll never work, and honestly, they were saying that until 2008. 5 full years and nearly 1,000 consoles had been shipped from Axia at that point. The Fusion console is really the most capable radio console ever. And you'll see what I mean when we look at some of the advanced features coming up. Here's Clark Novak again to talk about flexibility and profiles.
In this video, we'll show you some of Fusion's most powerful features, profiles. Profiles are powerful settings that make it easier to perform some of a board op's most complicated, repetitive tasks. The first kind of profile we'll talk about is the source profile. A source profile allows you to apply modifications to an incoming audio source just once, and then save those modifications so that they can be recalled later. The source behaves operationally and with audio characteristics the same every single time you use it. For instance, let's say you put a mic in the news bullpen and you want to adjust for its environment. You modify its source profile with a custom EQ curve to boost mid-range a bit and roll off the low-end rumble from the AC. You also dial up a little compression to even things out and maybe put in a noise gate. Once you save the source profile for this mic, those settings are automatically applied whenever that mic is loaded to your Fusion console, no matter what fader you assign it to, or to any other Axia console anywhere on your studio network. Source profiles can also contain information about mix-minus preferences, IFB and talkback locations, machine control logic, and much more. Fusion's extreme flexibility allows power users like you to tailor each audio source to behave exactly the way you want it to every time it's used, without your board op having to make complicated special adjustments. And the same source can have multiple profiles so that operators always pick the correctly configured sources for their show. For example, this console mic can have profiles with different dynamic settings, each tailored to the voice characteristics of different talent. Now let me show you show profiles. A show profile is a snapshot of the entire console. It makes it simple to change the board layout from a multi-mic morning show to a music-intensive midday program with just 2 clicks. Here's how it works. Once the board is set up the way you like it, you save a snapshot of it. That snapshot becomes a show profile. The show profile remembers what source is assigned to each fader, what bus assignments are active, monitor and headphone selections, whether the individual fader should be on or off, even customized mic processing for individual talent. When it's time to change shows, your jock selects their show profile from the on-screen list and takes it. Within seconds, Fusion is set up and ready to go. Fusion can store up to 99 show profiles, more than enough for even the largest operations. What happens if a new show profile specifies a source change for the fader that's currently on air? Nothing. A safety routine detects the active fader and cues the source change so that it's delayed until that fader is turned off. Fusion will never interrupt your programming. Best of all, there's a secret reset switch for your air talent. If they've made changes and need to return Fusion's setup to baseline, just press the show profile key for 5 seconds and the profile reloads, easy as pie. There's one more special profile. It's called Record Mode. Record Mode lets you easily record callers off-air with a single button press. You touch the Record Mode button and it automatically takes the console mic out of program, assigns the caller and the console mic to a special record bus, starts a recording device that you specified ahead of time, and then generates a split track recording so that you can easily edit things later. And of course, a mix minus is automatically generated and fed back to the phone caller as well. Source profiles, show profiles, and record mode. 3 more reasons you'll find Fusion to be the easiest console your operators have ever used. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
You know, the Fusion console is brand new, but it's part of a big family. Let's meet the family. The console and all the consoles are more than just a console. It's part of an ecosystem. The whole Livewire ecosystem goes together easily and smoothly. You connect it all with Ethernet cable, and here's something significant. Only Axia connects with Livewire, Ravenna, that's another AoIP standard, and AES67, the newly approved AoIP standard that lots of companies have agreed upon. It's an AES standard, AES67. Livewire has that built in now. It does it. Let's look at some pictures of how we connect a Fusion console to other gear in our studio. It's a little bit different than what you're used to from connecting, say, an Element console to the rest of the world. A Fusion console needs 48 volts DC, and it gets that from, let's say, a power station. But instead of using CAN bus between the power station and the Fusion console for data transfer, the Fusion console has an IP address. It's Ethernet capable. Ethernet ready. In fact, that's how you talk to it. So you connect an Ethernet cable between the Fusion console and the Ethernet switch on the back of the Axia power station. CAN bus is still used internally inside the console among the Fusion modules and for in-studio talent modules. Again, when powered by a power station, the same connectors and cable are used, but only for 48 volt DC power. If you use the new Fusion power supply, well, that supplies 48 volts as well to the Fusion console. The Ethernet cable goes to the rest of the network. We'll show you how that works in just a minute. What about the studio talent modules we spoke of? You know, some of those talent modules connect using CAN bus. Well, there are spare CAN bus connectors inside the Fusion console. And so you hook those talent modules up just as you always have using CAN bus. This gives your talent access to different things to monitor, to volume control for their headphones, and to important functions like talkback and mute, and they can turn their mic on and off. So if you're configuring this with a power station, you'll hook up your video monitor from the power station. You'll connect Ethernet and 48 volts DC between the Fusion console and the power station itself. And look at the back of the power station. If you're unfamiliar with it, well, there's plenty going on back there. The power station is everything you need to hook up a radio console. It has some mic inputs, some analog line inputs and outputs. It has some AES digital inputs and outputs. Plus, it has an Ethernet switch on the back. And this Ethernet switch is already configured for LiveWire. There's no additional configuration necessary. Plus, you have GPIO. Those are contact closures, inputs and outputs on the back. Power supply, of course, is built in. It's a fanless power supply, so the power station is perfectly quiet. And there's an input on the back of the power station to receive a redundant power supply from the power station auxiliary unit, which you can add at the time you install the studio or later on. The aux unit gives you backup power, and it also gives you more audio I/O and GPIO. If you need even more audio I/O, you can hook up an Axia X node and plug that into the Ethernet switch on the back of the power station. There's another way to configure this without a power station, and that's what you would call an a la carte configuration. So you take the Fusion console and hook it up to the Fusion power supply to supply it with 48 volts. Then you supply it with a studio mixing engine. Now, the mix engine contains two things. It contains the DSP mixing software and circuitry, but it also contains the code that runs the Fusion console, and hence it supplies the video for the Fusion's video monitor. So you can see everything that's going on and selected in the Fusion console. Now, the studio mix engine needs to connect to an Ethernet switch, and we have one right there. That's the Axia X switch, by the way. You can use the X switch in that position, or you can use a configured Cisco switch that's been approved for this purpose. You could also add to it some audio inputs and outputs. There are some X nodes, for example, right there. Analog or AES, a microphone node, or a combo node, or a standalone GPIO node, whatever you need. You can custom build your studio with just the number of inputs and outputs that you're going to need there. Here's a look at the back of the Axia mixing engine. This is called the Studio Mix Engine. It's equipped with redundant power supplies right out of the box. It also has the LiveWire connector, so you hook this to your LiveWire network. That's where all the audio comes in, gets mixed, and goes back out of the mix engine. And there's a DVI monitor connector on the back of this. That's where you hook up your video monitor. So you can put the Studio Mix Engine in the studio. It's fanless, so it's perfectly quiet, or you can locate it in the rack room and extend the DVI out. You can convert the DVI to HDMI video. That might be easier for some folks. Or you can use an active box to pass DVI video over a Cat5 cable and bring it over to the studio. Here's a picture of the back of the Fusion power supply. Now, it's pretty simple. It doesn't even have an Ethernet connection. It's just a power supply to supply 48 volts. So it has the console power connection there, and of course AC mains coming into that. Now, here's a view of the side or the end of the Fusion console, and if you tilt the overbridge up, you'll find inside something new, something that's not been in Axia consoles before. This is a IP or Ethernet to CAN bus converter board. And this board also is the place where two power supplies can connect to supply redundant power to the console. There's also a network connection. So let's look in the lower left-hand corner of this new board. This is where the main and, if you want, backup power connections go to the Fusion console. It's also where the network connection goes. So this is where your IP address comes from on the Fusion console. Over on the right-hand side, there's a metal block. You can't see it, but that's actually a block of 4 RJ45 jacks, and those are actually CAN bus connectors. Those fan out to the modules in the Fusion console, and one of them can go external to supply CAN bus to any external talent panels that you may have. And finally, in the lower right-hand corner, there's a white connector there for CAN bus. That would carry CAN bus over to a second Fusion frame if you want to have a split frame Fusion setup. What about the soft surface? You know, there are a lot of Axia users like the soft surface. It's software that will control a mixing engine or an Axia console. Well, good news, the soft surface works just fine with the new Fusion console, and it works either in the a la carte configuration or in the power station configuration. Either way. And this is kind of cool. Soft surface will control this console either with or without a console actually being present. So if you need to make a console, you can actually do it with soft surface, which, by the way, runs on Windows, Windows XP 7 or Windows 8. And all you need is a power station or studio mixing engine in order to make that work and actually do mixing. So again, the two main ways to run a Fusion console are the first way there, the a la carte with a studio engine and a Fusion power supply. Now, in addition to those items, you're going to need an Ethernet switch and some audio I/O. But you get to pick how much audio I/O you need to purchase for your studio. That's in the form of X nodes, by the way. The other way to do it is with an Axia power station. Now, the power station has a lot of stuff built into it, maybe, in fact, probably everything that you need, including, well, the power supply, of course, but also the Ethernet switch is built in, microphone inputs, analog input and output, and AES EBU inputs and outputs, plus GPIO. And, as we noted before, it's expandable by adding a power station auxiliary unit if you want that. Hey, once again, here's my colleague Clark Novak to talk about TalkBack, Backfeed, and Intercom.
In this video, we'll explain how Fusion optimizes your operator's workflow. How easily your board ops can communicate with others makes a big difference in how smoothly and professionally a show is produced. That's why Fusion has built-in communications capabilities, very sophisticated ones, that include TalkBack, Backfeeds, and even Intercom capabilities to multiple locations, both inside and outside the studio. First, let's look at TalkBack. At the bottom of every fader strip, you'll find a key marked TalkBack. This is one way that Fusion helps automate your workflow and enhance communications. This is great for when your board op needs to give information to selected talent in the control room or another studio, or even remote talent sending audio over an ISDN, IP codec, or radio link. When the board operator pushes the TalkBack key on a fader assigned to the mic of a studio guest, he's instantly talking off-air to the headphone feed that's paired with that guest mic. And if that guest has an optional guest control panel, he can press his TalkBack key to talk back privately to the board op too. When the board op pushes TalkBack on a fader that has a remote codec loaded, he's instantly speaking to the remote talent via the codec's IFB. Neat, huh? Another area where Fusion eases workflow is the way it works with phones, an important part of many broadcast operations. Right next to the TalkBack keys at the bottom of every fader are keys labeled Set and Hold that let you place phone callers on hold or transfer them to a studio phone set right from the console if your phone system supports it. Or if you have a Telos multi-line phone system, you can take direct control of multiple callers and lines using the available Call Controller module. Using its controls and information displays, your board op can easily screen, queue, and air multiple callers without ever taking their hands or eyes off the console. Speaking of phones, let's talk about mix minus, or clean feed, N-1, whatever you like to call it. With Fusion, there's no fiddling with manual bus assignments to construct manual mix minuses. Phone callers automatically get a custom mix minus derived from the on-air mix. Doesn't matter if you have 2 callers on the air or 20. Each caller gets their very own custom mix minus without any effort from the operator, aside from pushing the fader on button, and without tying up one of the primary mixing buses. Of course, for special circumstances, you can manually build a custom mix minus from any program bus on the fly with just a couple of button presses. Finally, Fusion enables better whole plant communications with built-in intercom capability. Whether you have a big radio plant or a radio-TV combination, optional Fusion intercom modules let board ops use the board mics and preview speaker to quickly communicate with personnel in other places, like control rooms, editing booths, TOCs, or anywhere else. Fusion intercom modules come in 10-station and 20-station sizes. Frequently called stations can be pre-programmed for instant access. Other stations can be dialed directly. And here's something really special. Axia's IP intercom system provides real broadcast quality audio, not intercom audio. So the breaking news or vital information can be taken to air right from the intercom system without waiting for them to get to a studio. If it's on the intercom system, it's instantly available to air. No matter how complicated your workflow, Fusion has the power to help you detangle it for smoother, more error-free shows. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
All right, we've been alluding a little bit to some of the special features inside the Fusion console. Let's take a look at those things now. You may know about the virtual mixers, or vMixers, that are built into Axia consoles, and the Fusion expands on that. Instead of 8 virtual mixers, or vMixers, it has 16 vMixers. Each virtual mixer has 5 inputs and 1 output. Or you can use the individual outputs like direct outs if you just need to change something about them or control their volume. There are a couple of different ways to use virtual mixers. One way is as a static mix. For example, this is shown right here, a static mix between the control room monitor and the preview output from the console. Those are mixed together and delivered to a new output that can be fed to the speakers. This way, your control room speakers can do double duty. They can be control room monitors, and they can be Q or preview monitors, and the volumes behave exactly as you expect them to, controllable from the console. Some people do like to do this by eliminating a couple of speakers in the control room and still getting all the functionality that they need. Another way to use virtual mixers, though, is in a kind of a live situation. You can control the vMixers with an app from BSI or with an app from the Pathfinder software called vMix Control. The BSI app runs in iOS, so it runs on an iPhone or probably more conveniently an iPad. The vMix Control runs on any Windows machine that's connected to the network. Another utility that's built in is called vMode. vMode is able to change the characteristics of a given stream that's on the Livewire network. For example, if you have a feed that's left channel only and you need it to be split to both, you can do that. If you have a stereo feed that needs to be mixed down to mono, well, you can do that as well. Other things like that are available with vMode. It does basically upmixing and downmixing for you to get streams conditioned exactly the way you need them. Let's look at some of the building blocks now of a Fusion console. There's the 4-fader module, very popular. You're going to need several of these. A couple of different choices for monitor modules, monitor navigation modules. The first one there is the expert one. The second one is the standard monitor. We'll take a more detailed look at these in just a minute. There's the Telos call controller module, and then there are modules for intercom and for button functions that can control anything in Pathfinder. All right, let's look at that 4-fader module. This is where you start building your Fusion. You figure out how many sources do you need on the air at the same time, and you build your console big enough to handle that. It comes in standard and motorized fader. It comes in standard and motorized fader versions for use with automation systems or other moving fader applications. You want to put callers on the air? No problem. You can control them right from the console with the Call Controller module. It has 2 faders plus an integrated line switching controls with status symbols for on-console control of advanced Telos broadcast phone systems. And you can get that in motorized fader as well if you like. There's an expert monitor and navigation module. This is the full-featured monitor navigation module with lots of buttons to bring out the functions that you may need at the touch of a button. There's another monitor navigation module, though. It's called the standard monitor navigation module. It features a couple of faders built into it to extend the number of faders that you have on your work surface, and it has a smaller monitor and navigation section. A few items are down behind menus, but most items are available right from the buttons that you'd need from day-to-day operation. Some of the other Fusion modules are a 10-button film cap switch module and the 10-button smart switch module. Also, an intercom module. This is available in 10-station and 20-station versions for adding intercom capabilities to your console. All right, let's look at a couple of the other new things that are in Fusion. One of them is the Flex Source Profile. That's a big fancy name, and what does it really mean? Well, basically, it's a simplification of how you set up the console. If you're accustomed to setting up, say, an Element console, you know there's a rather long web page with lots of features for setting up each individual source. Well, the Flex Source Profile makes that a little bit easier. Look at the top of the page there where it says Source Type, Operator. Well, when you click that down and choose your source type, maybe a hybrid or a codec, a computer player, an operator, a studio mic, a control room mic, whatever you choose, it sets up the rest of this page to have the features and options that you actually need. So now you don't have to skip by features that you don't need or wonder, do I need to set this up or not? The page pretty well presents you with just what you need to know to set up that particular source. It also is a good place to define the backfeed properties, and here you can also begin to define the record mode properties. It's also much easier in the Fusion console to set up the integrated phone config. It's easy and clean to understand. It supports both NX12 and VX style communications. And get this supports both US style and Euro style phone control. So it makes it easy to set this up no matter where in the world you are and what kind of telephone system that you like, whether it's a one line per hybrid and one hybrid per fader, or whether it's multiple lines per hybrid and then one hybrid per fader. So you get your choice there. All right, what about watching the meters? You know, disc jockeys always watch the meters, don't they? No. Well, that's why mic processing and EQ are built into the console. And setting up the mic processing is really easier than ever before. Again, with previous consoles, it was in a long list. Well, it's just been rearranged to show you the mic processing and EQ in a bit more logical way. So you can easily, on the screen here, set up the processing, the threshold and depth of the noise gate, same for the compressor, and the de-esser, and post-processing trim as well. Plus you can set up the 3-band parametric EQ right here. Familiar controls and settings, and again, it's an easier to read layout and user interface. All right. Here is the what I think is kind of the complicated part of the Fusion, and that is a custom backfeed. Now, I'll tell you what, most radio stations will never need this, but if you do, you're going to be very glad that it's in there. You see on the top line there where it says feed to source. Well, the choices there are the previous choices that we used to have in Axia consoles, automatic, based on program 1 or 2, 3 or 4, based on the aux feeds. But if you click custom, you get this big matrix of choices. You can choose what happens on the left channel for a backfeed or on the right channel for a backfeed, and you can choose what happens when the channel is turned off, when it's off but in preview, when it's on. And this is the backfeed setup, but you can also set up the record mode characteristics for when the channel is off but in preview, and record mode when the channel is on. The bottom line is this really lets you customize what's going on. It lets you customize how, say, a remote broadcast or an OB, an outside broadcast, is being handled. What are you sending to that remote broadcast, whether they're on a mono circuit, maybe they're on a telephone line, or a stereo circuit, so they're on some kind of a stereo codec, maybe an IP codec, maybe an ISDN codec. So you can really control your backfeed operation with this screen. Again, left and right backfeeds can be different config for channel off and channel on, and conditional backfeed configuration provides truly unmatched flexibility for remote broadcasts. If you used to have to build up little boxes or have some kind of external mixer or relay switching configuration or a router configuration just to handle your remote broadcasts, now you can have that built into the console because the options are all here to handle even the most complicated remote broadcast, even the most complicated backfeed and complicated recording setups. It's all available right here with this custom backfeed control. Here's a bit more about that, how you can define record mode. You can define bus assignment per source for record mode and define behavior among entering and exiting record mode. You actually might want that to be different depending on what's going on the air. Bottom line is record mode is very flexible and very powerful now on the Fusion console. Now, there's not going to be a test on these slides here, the next 4 slides, but I just want to show you the logic that's possible now built into the Fusion console. Nothing external. This is built in to what it can do. Here's a situation where you might have a remote broadcast going on. You've got a public address system at the remote broadcast site, so you're feeding pre-delay, uninterrupted, clean feed audio out to the remote site for the PA speakers. But you also have the ability for the talent to chat back and forth in real time with people back at the studio, including producers who may be on intercom systems. Now, the next slide is a slight, watch for it, a slight variation on that. This is for recording the talent so that they could, say, pre-record their breaks. So, again, there's the first slide, there's the second slide. Just little differences in how the console can operate and be set up based upon that flexible recording we saw, or flexible configuration we saw earlier. Here's another way that talent can chat with a group of talent that's in the studio. They can actually talk to each other, have a conversation off the air to discuss what they're going to say on the air. And of course, they can talk to each other while they're on the air too. This is how you might set up a voice tracking with the console, even voice tracking that might be under the direction of, say, a producer on the intercom system there. So this is how you would set that up. And one more configuration. This is voice tracking when you have several people on the microphones. Let's say you want to voice track a morning show, and you've got, several people on the morning show to all talk to each other with producers going on. Bottom line is you can do a lot of cool and complicated stuff, but for the operators on the air, they're just pushing a button or two and getting all this complication taken care of for them. I have a few pictures here of what I call Fusion in the wild. A few Fusion consoles have already gone into radio stations, and so here's a few pictures of that. Just gorgeous. There's one with a call controller module right in the middle of it. This is in a major market in the U.S. Yeah, there's a guy getting ready to work. Actually, I think this station is actually on the air now in that picture. And here's one more picture of the Fusion console ready to go to work. All right. So there's power under the hood with Fusion consoles. The Fusion internally handles virtually any record, mix, and backfeed requirements for the most complex workflows. Fusion does this complex work with no operator setup during busy shows. And remote broadcasts, well, they work just like they're in studio. Plus, studio guests and hosts get perfect IFB. They can talk to each other without really thinking about it. And a sophisticated recording setup allows touching just one record button, rolling your recorder, I almost said tape machine, rolling your recorder and recording what you need to record, whether it's a phone bit or a voice track, whatever you need. You got it? Did you get all that? Okay, but what if I forget it? Well, there's one more idea I want to introduce you to. After this webinar, I'd like you to go to your computer and open a browser window. Here, let's go ahead and start one here. All right. A new window, and this is very easy. I want you to go to YouTube. There you go. And when you get to YouTube, I'd like you to search for Telos Alliance. There you go, Telos Alliance. Just choose Telos Alliance, and in the search results, you'll see Telos Alliance right there. Click on that, and that takes you to the Telos Alliance channel on YouTube. Now, why do I want you to go to that? Oh, be sure you're signed in right there. Not as me, as you, okay? And then subscribe. Click subscribe. Now you can get notified when Telos, Omnia, Axia, Linear Acoustic, 25/7, when any division adds a video, you can get notified about that by email or just when you go back to YouTube. Check out all the videos we have here. And here's the 4 videos that Clark Novak produced earlier. You can go back and review those if you like. And there's more videos about Axia consoles. There's Larry Fuss. There's something about the soft surface. There's just all kinds of information here. Cool stuff about our products. Some Linear Acoustic, the new MT2000. Some interviews with a lot of station owners and users and talent. And engineering tips too. Also the Broadcast Audio Fanatics Tour and what we call honorable mentions. Bottom line is there's a lot of things on, a lot of educational videos on the Telos website. So if you would, check that out, subscribe to the Telos channel, and you can be up to date and informed on what's going on with the Telos world. Well, thanks a lot for watching our video about the Fusion console. Remember, there's a whole line, a whole family of audio consoles. They're all audio over IP from Axia and from the Telos Alliance. I'm Kirk Harnack. Thanks so much for joining us. I appreciate your attention. Bye-bye.